Hey, welcome to the Seven Figure Real Estate Podcast.
Today we have Francis on. Francis is a real estate agent and investor. Francis has a pretty remarkable story, going bankrupt 10 years ago and completely building himself back up from zero, living on welfare and eating at soup kitchens, working at tomato factory, all the way to, I think you're closing $90,000 in real estate this week.
Yes.
So pretty remarkable story for any guys out there who are looking to get into real estate and have no money, want to get into flipping, learn a little bit about auctions and how to get your hands on you. We also talk, stay tuned, because we talk about a story where he bought a house for $30,000, took out the trash, and then how long did it take you to sell it for $60,000?
About 4 months.
4 months. So awesome stories. We actually are going to be putting a ton of value into the notes today for you guys to check out. So make sure you look at the description. And with that said, let's get right into the show. Hey, Francis, thanks for coming on today. Funny story, I actually called Francis last night through a buddy of mine who's a private money lender and mortgage banker. I said, hey, do you know anyone who's into real estate who would be a really good guest? And he mentioned Francis. And then I ended up hopping on the phone with Francis last night and found out about all these like crazy flipping stories you had, and then came into the office and had some really good conversation this morning about 30 minutes ago, and found out that, so you went bankrupt
Yes.
10 years ago
Yes.
at the age of 60 and started from basically restarted your entire life and had to go back to work, living off Social Security and working at a tomato plant and
Yes.
moving furniture.
My migrant worker days.
Yeah. And I mean, that must have been really humbling, going from like, you know, you're most people like that age are retiring and like they're kind of coming like all of a sudden like, shoot, I have to restart.
Yeah. It was physically, because I'm sedentary. I sit on my butt all day and, talk on the phone. It was hard to go do physical labor.
Yeah.
I wasn't used to it.
Mhm.
And it was very challenging. I guess they kept me because they felt bad for me.
Yeah. And, so you go from this and now, I mean, just kind of a foreshadow, Francis is closing like $90,000 in real estate this week, right?
Yes. I'm netting $90,000 from the flips, from three flips.
From 3 flips. So, and we'll kind of get to like how Francis did that later in the episode, but I want to talk about just that story from going from like literally like starting over and kind of like how you built back up. And you started did you start kind of going back into the game as an agent? Because the real estate game wasn't the same as it is now 10 years ago.
Especially in Waterville. Waterville went into a depression back when the depression happened, and it just never came out of it. And in the 80s, we lost all of our factories. Hathaway, the Scott Paper, we lost all the manufacturing jobs in the 80s and 90s. And there was nothing. There was nothing for work. I was lucky to make $2,000 a month as a real estate agent. I was just surviving, Fortunately,
How long have you been selling, Francis?
38 years.
38 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had 1 year in between where I didn't. Back when I went bankrupt, I had to get a job as a tomato plant in Madison, Maine, and I applied for it. And the guy said, "You're hired." And I went, "Oh shit, oh shit, no, I don't want to do this." But I had to. I had to have income.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I also delivered furniture for Rent-A-Center.
Yeah. Did you have a plan? Like, were you like, okay, I'm going to start flipping houses. I'm going to start generating a little bit of side income, selling real estate. Or was it kind of just like, I just need to like survive?
I need to survive. Yeah. A friend of mine was kind, and I found this house that went up for auction. I could have bought it for $5,000, but I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
You had to put 10% down. I didn't have $500 to put down on it. So it went to auction. And then I found him and said, my friend was willing to buy the house for me. We said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want 10. Give me $10,000. The house is yours." And the house was not livable. There was no heating system. The windows were bad. There was just everything was peeling off the walls. It had been abandoned for several years. So I said, "Well, buy it and I'll fix it up and I'll make it livable."
Yeah.
So the first year we moved in, we painted everything we could and make it at least 3-4 rooms livable for us. And then a friend of mine donated a used boiler that should have been scrapped, and we put that in the basement. And another friend donated a hot water tank. The reason they took it out is because the bottom of it had like ballooned. It was round on the bottom. You had to bolt it to a 4x4 so it wouldn't fall over, but it still worked. So I put all that into the house, and we had hot water and we had heat.
Yeah. And then how long did it take you to like fully finish this first house?
About 3 years. Yeah, I went to the Fairfield, Maine is where it was, had these trash days. You could put everything out on the street. I literally took my truck and my trailer and I went around and I picked up enough windows and doors to fix the house up with.
Whoa.
Off the street.
Oh, wow.
That fit.
Yeah.
You were really hustling. And then, so then 3 or 4 years later, you sold the house for how much?
$130,000.
So you bought the house for $10,000 and then sold it for $130,000.
Yeah, I actually, he bought the house for $10,000.
Yeah.
I rebought it from him for $25,000 after I paid him $500 a month for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And so he made, he invested $10,000 and I think he made $45,000 when he was done.
Yeah. And
But it
then,
helped both of us.
but all of a sudden you went from like being bankrupt to having 100 and, probably net. How much did you net?
I probably put 80 into the house, so I probably net 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you netted 50 and then all of a sudden you had this cash. So did you just go right back to the auctions trying to buy more houses?
No, before I sold that house, I bought another ranch, and I bid on it. I put it under contract. I had no money, and I had no way to buy it. I had no credit. So I got on the internet and I joined this money club where you can find private lenders. And I made 100 phone calls, and they were no. And finally, I found this one guy in California. And I told him what I was doing, and I said the ARV, the after repair value, is 140. I bought it for 68. I got to put 20 into it, and it's 2 blocks from my house. I can do all the work, and he gave me 100% of the purchase price plus the rehab money. And I'm going like, who the heck's going to give you? I got a check for 20 grand at closing. I'm going like, wow, most people put this up their nose or whatever,
Yeah.
it's gone. I'm going, I'm not going to blow that chance.
Yeah.
So I fixed the house up, and it didn't sell for about 6 months. And I'm going like, I don't know, maybe we should move into it and just rent the other house. And then all of a sudden we got an offer on it for 130. And I asked the wife, I said, what do we do? She said, sell it.
Yeah.
And we took that money. So we had 70, we had 80 into it. So what did we net? About 45 with between the co-broke and whatever closing costs.
And how long did it take you to do that?
About 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah.
And then I found another house in Vassarboro, Maine, and Earl Kinney from Spring Curtis had it listed for $70,000. And I bid 72 on it, and I bought the house.
Yeah.
And I put 50 into it, and I sold it for 300.
Yeah.
But we lived there for 2 years. So, and I owner financed it. Somebody gave me $30,000 down, and they're paying me $2,000 a month. And what's nice for them is now today I could sell that house for $350 to $400, so they didn't get hurt on it.
Yeah.
So is this something you were able to do passively, or are you doing this full time?
That I was doing passively at that time.
Yeah.
And then next house I bought was a doctor's office, 4,000 square feet. And I turned it into a house. You ever see, watch YouTube, and it's called barndominium? Out in Texas and out in the West, they buy these barns and they make mansions out of them. You got like a 6-bay garage at one end, and you've got 10,000 square feet of living space with an in-ground pool and all that stuff, and 20 acres.
Yeah.
And that's a barndominium. So that was my mini barndominium. And so I just put it up for sale for $600,000. And the neighbor behind me put their house up for sale, and they have a swimming pool, and their house is luxury. And I said, well, to compete with them, I'm going to drop mine to $550. It's just, if they're looking at their house, they're going to look at mine, right?
Yeah.
And 2 days later, I had a full price offer on the house.
How long ago was this?
It's happening right now.
Oh, great.
I am homeless again.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a house and if I quit work today, all right, right now in real estate, I'm making $25,000 a month. But if I quit work today, my wife and I Social Security is $2,000. I'm 70 years young. I don't have much time left to work. I can't be on the hamster wheel much longer.
Right.
So I'm going to buy, like I said, hopefully 20 doors and multifamilies. I'm going to look at a 7-family today for $420 in Augusta. I have an apartment duplex that I bought. And so I want to have 20 doors minimum of rentals, and I want to have maybe 15 to 20 subject to properties, buying houses subject to the mortgage.
You want to explain how subject to properties work and why they're so, such a fantastic type of deal in this type of market?
Well, right now, about 60% of the mortgages are at between 2 and 4% in the past, 24 months or 36 months. You say, well, a lot of these people are welded to that house. They're never going to sell because the mortgage payment's so cheap. They can't rent. The rent's twice as much as their mortgage.
Right.
And so why would they sell? There's 5 reasons they got to sell: death, disability, they're delinquent because they now they have a cheap payment. They go out and buy $1,000 truck payment, and she gets a $1,000 car payment. Now they can't afford the mortgage. So there's many reasons people will have to sell, and when they do, they fall behind, or they're relocating to another place. And all right, so they come and see you, and they say, all right, I bought the house for $400, and I did it with HUD, and they put 3.5% down. What's that? Maybe $18,000 they put for a down payment.
Right.
So they still owe $380, and their payment on that $380 at 2.5%, it would be how much? Probably guessing $2,400. All right. Well, if I can take over that mortgage, give them cash for keys, like $5,000. They give me a deed. I take over their payment, subject to. And I have to keep their insurance in place. And I have to get my own insurance to double insure it. Now, that $1,800 payment, PITI, I can probably rent that. A $400,000 house is probably worth $500,000 today. I could probably, in a good area in Westbrook or Yarmouth or wherever it is, I could probably rent that between $3,500 and $4,000. So I'm going to put the difference in my pocket. So if I can buy, 10, 15 of those and make $500 to $1,500 a month, that's a residual income. There's a lot of good things about it. Is one, you don't have to qualify.
Right.
I've been watching a couple gurus online. There's Pace Morby. Pace Morby has $300 million worth of loans that he never qualified for.
Right.
Businesses, apartment buildings. He has like 500 units in apartment buildings and single-family houses. He doesn't do single-family houses anymore. There's just too little.
Yeah.
But there's tons of people out there that need to sell, and they're underwater. Their loan is more than the house is worth. Maybe not a lot, but next year when the recession hits, there's going to be tons of them.
So how do you go about finding these deals? Because I mean, it's really hard to cold call people. I think this is more something that happens through connections. Hey, Sally and Joe are kind of, they're not doing great right now, and then you give them a call. Is that how it works?
No. There's a house that came up on Mutton Lane in Clinton, and a buyer called me and said, "What about this house? Can I buy this house? It's I think it was $175,000 for a ranch in Clinton, Maine, with a couple acres, and it has to be a short sale." Oh, that's a deal right there. It's a short sale, so they owe more on the house than it's worth.
Right.
So anytime you see a short sale, that's a potential sub two. You may have to pay more than the house is worth to take it over. But if the mortgage payment is low enough, it doesn't matter as long as you can rent it.
Right.
So there's one way. Another way is you go by and the lawn is 3 feet deep. The other thing is I just joined Connected Investors. I got a website, and you can go into on the internet, put in foreclosures for Maine, and it gives you a list of every town. There's like pre-foreclosures. In other words, they're not going to foreclosure yet, but
so you can and then you cold call these people and say, "Hey,
yes.
My name's Francis.
Yes.
Are you interested in me taking over your mortgage?"
Yeah. But when I put in the address on my website, it gives me everything on the property, what they owe, what their payment is, how many months they are behind, etc. It gives me every detail. It gives me their name, address, phone number. It gives me everything about them. And now I know more about them than their family does.
Right.
Yeah. How much is this software?
Well, I had to pay $1,500 last night to join Connected Investors. $1,000 for the Connected Investors, and $500 for the website. But if I do a interview with them and show them I did one deal through the website, they'll give me the $500 back.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not happy with it after 30 days, they'll refund me the $1,500.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty good guarantee.
Yeah. And so I said, yeah, I'm doing this. I want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me.
Interesting. Okay, so you have the flipping going on, and now you're looking at doing these reverse mortgages.
Yes.
So let's go into some like flipping stories, because you have some you didn't, in this process of going from like bankrupt to being like making a lot of money recently. You skipped over some stories. Like there was one. So your strategy is like you look at what's on the auction, what's going up for auction, and then you go look at these houses and you say, okay, this is how much I think this is worth. And then you go and then you just bid on it. Because I remember I used to watch the Bigger Pockets podcast like religiously when I was 15, 16, 17, when I was starting to get into real estate. And every once in a while they'd have these house flippers on and they'd talk about going to auction and buying these houses for like dirt cheap. And I'd hear these stories that like one day you're about to tell where you bought a house for how much? So you bought a house for $30,000.
I bought a house in Jackman, Maine for $30,000. I buy everything north of Waterville.
Yeah.
Because people from Portland who are bidding don't want to drive to Jackman, Maine. It's like 3.5 hours.
Yeah. So you bought a house for $30,000.
$30,000.
And then took out the trash.
I took out the trash, because people can't see past trash.
Yeah.
So I cleaned it up and I listed it for $69,900 on the MLS. And the lady who was there at the auction wanted the house, but she didn't see it. She didn't go check it out. And she didn't know it was going to go that cheap. She didn't bid on it. So I bought it. And she called me and she said, I want to buy that house. I'll give you $60,000 cash. Okay.
Probably the easiest $30,000 you ever made.
Yeah, I didn't make 30. I made 25.
Yeah.
Carrying costs, closing costs, take out the trash type stuff. So I made $25,000. That I just got paid that last week.
Nice.
And now I bought another house in Clinton, Maine, with a huge raised ranch, a huge garage with it, 2 acres of land. I paid $125, closing costs $5,000. I put $5,000 into it. I had people making me offers, and they wanted to do a building inspection, a septic inspection, radon, water, and all that. And I said, and they wanted like 30 days to do that. And I'm going, no, you're not going to do that. So I spent $1,500. I called my friend Jimmy, who was a building inspector. I said, go in there, do all the inspections. I'll pay for it, and I'll give it to him. So I did all the inspections, and then I got a full price offer of $200,000. I'm closing on that today,
Nice.
and I'm going to make $45,000 net on that house. And then I bought a house in Presque Isle, which is 2 hours north of me, 2.5 hours, for $15,000. And again, I took the trash out, and I'm closing on that one Monday. And I'll make $15,000 or $18,000 net on that one.
What's this take the trash out strategy? Because it sounds pretty easy. And like and this is kind of what I was talking about on the listening to these like house flipping stories. They make it sound so easy. Like you go into the auction, you find a house that's like drastic, crazy underpriced, and just needs like a little makeup, maybe some paint, maybe just take the trash out, clean up the driveway a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're making like $30,000 in like a 1 month span just from a quick little.
Well, you don't make money when you sell. You make money when you buy.
Yeah.
So the profit's already built in. All I got to do is take out the trash. Literally, I don't do it. I call Tom, Dick, or Harry, and I call the town office, and I said, give me names of people who take out rubbish. And so I call Tom, Dick, or Harry, and they say, how much? I said, $1,500. Good. I'll mail you a check, or what bank do you deal with? I'll go in, make a deposit, and they'll transfer it to them, right away. And just people can't get past the trash or the smell or whatever.
Right. Right.
And it's that simple. I rather, that's wholesaling. I would rather wholesale than flip a house.
Right.
Yeah.
Because flipping is, you got to hire a contractor, you got to do all this work, you got to wait. It's just too much.
So when you smell trash, you smell money.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the show today. If you ever want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the greater Portland area, please reach out to us here at Danbury Guerin Real Estate Advisors. Our phone number, 207-553-2400, or you can always email us at team@danburyguerin.com.
The 7-Figure Real Estate Podcast and the CE Shop have partnered to provide you guys with awesome real estate licensing education. So wherever you are in the US, if you are looking to get your real estate license, make sure to check out the CE Shop and you can start your real estate journey today. We have links in all of our descriptions. So if you're interested, make sure to scroll down, click the link, and get started.
I have 3 I'm closing this week, and I have 4 pending right now.
Mm-hmm.
All your deals.
Yeah, I bought them at the auction. One guy, 72 years old, has a house in Ellsworth, and it's worth $400,000, $500,000. But because when you're at the bottom, all you can see is the bottom coming. When you're falling into a hole, all you see is the bottom coming at you.
Right.
You can't look up. You can't look around. You're focused on the bottom. So when that happens and you're losing your house to foreclosure, you just can't do anything about it. People stick their heads in the sand. They go, I'm not going to lose my house. This is not going to happen. So this poor guy, Larry, 72 years old, and he walks with a cane, and he looks like he's 90. I bought the house for $200,000. That's what he owed on it. And the house, what do you call it? Zillow says it's worth like $490. And he's been there. He built it. He's got a 40 by 50 workshop, a 2-car garage, gambrel with 7 bedrooms and 3 full baths. And I said, Larry, I bought your house. I said, I'm sorry, but dude, I need you to leave. And he's going, can you give me 90 days? I'm like, no, I can't sell the house in October, November. Right. I need to sell it July, or as early as August, as early as I can. So I said, look, if you need help, I'll rent a truck for you. I'll give you $1,000 or I'll rent a truck for you. But you got to leave. And a month went by, and he wasn't doing anything. So I had to hire an attorney, give him $1,000, start the eviction process. Once he got the notice from the sheriff, he called me out and he said he sees the writing on the wall. Because I told him, I said, look, he has like 30 he repairs riding lawnmowers. He got 30 of them all in disrepair all over the yard, and there's trees growing around them. And I'm going, when you leave, everything that's left here is all going in the dumpster. He was devastated. Yeah. I said, because I don't need it. It's in my way. Yeah. So you need to remove this stuff, and you need to move, because if a sheriff comes over, gives you a notice to quit, to move, you need to be out in 48 hours. And you can't do it. I couldn't do it. So I says, I rented he wanted a U-Haul. I rented a Ryder truck with a lift gate for him. And he had it for 5 days, and he only made 1 load.
Oh, geez.
He could have made 3. But he didn't have the help. And he didn't ask for help. And he didn't tell me. And, I'm going like, dude, what are you going to do now? Well, I got my pickup truck and a trailer. Yeah.
That's kind of the dark side of being a landlord is you deal with people.
Well, I'm not a landlord.
It's, being
he's a legacy leftover from the foreclosure. And, he needs to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's bad to be in that position. That'd be devastating to anybody.
You were kind of in that position 10 years ago.
Yes.
Did your house get foreclosed on?
Yes.
Do you think that's just like the pitfalls of it? Because it's not, I don't think, one side it's like, it's a terrible thing to like kick someone out of their home.
Yep.
But it's, it's, what are you going to do?
He's had he got forbearance with COVID. So he didn't pay for 2.5 years. He didn't pay a mortgage for 2.5 years. He's not paying me any rent. He didn't offer me any rent.
Right.
So whatever money they have coming in, they're spending it all.
Yeah.
So they used to make a mortgage payment.
Right.
So I feel bad in a sense, but in another sense, he's not paying anything.
Yeah.
He
didn't help himself.
He didn't help himself. He's not paying a mortgage. He's not paying rent. He's not paying anything.
Yeah.
So as soon as people get forbearance, they live beyond their means.
Right.
Yeah. Damn, that's a tricky story. Have you ever had to like tough tenant stories where it was difficult and
all the time, man?
You have these, you kind of have to have these like ethical and like moral debates with yourself. Like, okay, like this is business. I'm running a company.
I had a single mom.
Yeah.
In one of my apartments who, ended up losing her job during COVID, and I let her stay for 9 months.
Yeah.
Free. I was like, I can't do this anymore. You got to go.
Yeah, your middle name's not welfare.
Right.
And at 70 years young,
Yeah. You don't have the runway.
I don't have the runway left.
Right.
To put up with this. Like when I bought that 2-family, the people were paying $625, and they paid their own utilities. But my mortgage was more than what they were going to pay for both sides. $12.50.
Yeah.
So I went to $12.50 each. Mm-hmm. And they're going like, can't you go up gradually? I said, my mortgage didn't go up gradually.
Yeah.
I said, I need the cash flow on this now.
You know what I hear out of this too is you're in a territory that you can do that.
Yes. The rents are doubling.
If you were buying in the city of Portland, you're not doing that.
No.
Wait, is it just the eviction process?
There's now rent control in the city of Portland.
Yeah.
So you can't increase. You can only increase somebody's rent no more than
10%.
Maximum 10%.
Yeah.
In
Waterville, we have so many legacy tenants. The people have been there 10, 15, 20, 30 years in one apartment. Mm-hmm. They're paying $600 for a 2-bedroom heated and hot water.
Right.
And sometimes lights included.
Yeah.
Or they're on Section 8 and they're paying $700 with everything included.
Right.
Well, these legacy tenants are in for a shock because if I buy the building, the rents are going to $1,200, $1,500.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's nothing included because I'm going to put in heat pumps.
Right.
And I'm going to break away from the central heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like kind of cynical, but it's the way, it's capitalism. You're buying real estate and in order for new developments and new housing and
actually to improve the housing too, because I'm sure these legacy tenants, I'm sure these buildings are not pristine properties.
No, you had to go in and put at least $5,000 to $8,000 in each apartment. Even though the building I bought was only 40 years old, and it was like condo nice. Mm-hmm. I still had to spend $10,000 on fixing problems with the building.
Of course,
because the owner did nothing, and both tenants were there 20 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the owner is 78 years old, and so he did nothing to the buildings at all.
Yeah.
Literally, I touched the bathroom sink and it fell over and collapsed under my hand, the weight of my hand, because I touched it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
the lady knew how to use it without making it fall over. And I'm going, oh my God. So I had to remodel the bathroom immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. So, okay, now you're 70 years young. And in these past 10 years, you've went from literally being bankrupt to becoming a very successful real estate investor. If you could go back to when you were 20 years old, knowing what you know now, where do you think you would be? And if you had another 50 years of runway,
in Hawaii in a condo, or something like that. I don't know, not necessarily Hawaii, but I would be very well off if I knew what I know now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally, because
what was the switch?
What's that?
What was the switch? What?
Why?
No, just what was the? This is where I want to be. Like this is or what did you learn that in the last 10 years you've been able to exponentially grow your net worth that you didn't know 10 years ago?
I taught myself. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I learned how to go. I bought houses at tax foreclosures, bank foreclosures. I helped other people do it for years. Mm-hmm. But when I got to be 62 and collecting Social Security and living meagerly and barely making it, I said, I'm not going out this way. Mm-hmm. I'm going to build something.
Yeah.
So that between 70 and 80 or whatever time I have left, I'm going to be comfortable.
So it was a desire to not just get by.
Right.
Was that your why?
Yeah, that was my why.
I don't want to live
I was going to the food pantry.
Yeah.
And soup kitchen.
Yeah.
To get groceries.
Mm-hmm.
That's humbling.
So you got pissed.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore.
I'm not going out this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's remarkable. So
it was a I'm sorry. So it was a hunger that you finally realized in your early 60s. You're like, okay, it's time to wake up and get to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what kept you from putting in that work when you were 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old?
My wife.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand business, doesn't understand real estate. Why buy this house? I had several unsuccessful projects that we bought and we broke even. And we worked on it for 6 months, both of us. Mm-hmm. And she didn't want to do that anymore. And she didn't want to, and every time we bought a house, it took all of our cash and we could barely pay the bills. And the financial stressed her out. So she didn't want me doing that.
Yeah.
And finally at 62, I said, I'm not listening to her. Honey, I bought a house today.
Yeah.
I don't tell her unless she asks me.
Yeah.
I just go out and buy the house. And did you buy a house today? Yeah, I bought a house today. So I have 4 that are pending right now.
Yeah.
And between those 4, I should make another 300,000.
So she's more risk. She was more risk adverse than you were.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. She is so risk adverse. If she comes to a stop sign and there is a car coming that could be a mile away, honey, you can put 10 semis can go by. Go.
Yeah.
No. There's a car coming. I can't move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having a partner that's on the same page about growing financially as you is a helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no fear.
Yeah.
So eventually you kind of figured out the relationship where you're like, okay, these are like Francis's goals and these are my wife's goals. And like, I know what I need to do to get there. And you kind of just you kind of did what was best for you in that situation.
Yes. What's nice too is that in the past 5 years, we have every time we moved 5 times. Every time we moved, we've 100% improved our living situation.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a 4,000 square foot house.
She doesn't mind that.
Huh?
She doesn't mind that.
No. She wanted to. She said, I want to die here.
Yeah.
I said, well, you better hurry up. We're leaving.
That's great.
So if you could go back to like when you were 30 years old, what would you have told your wife?
Well, at 30, I was single.
Okay. So what would you have done differently at 30 years old? Just started learning more?
Yes. Yeah. If I knew what I know now, like I said, I'd have been very well off.
What are the 3 things that you wish you knew when you were 30 that you know now?
Or 20 or 18?
Yeah. Buying houses at auction and, knowing about, I have, a good sphere of influence. I have a good people that do work. So I know what I can, what's going to cost me, and I know who's going to do the work. And so, knowing those people back then.
So building your bench, building your team.
Yeah, building a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the best way to do that is just simply reading books, podcasts, going out there.
Doing it.
Yeah.
You have to do it. It's like you don't learn to swim watching podcasts.
I just had this conversation with a client, and I said, you got to get off the sideline. Because, a year ago, we were looking at houses in this neighborhood.
Yes.
And you could afford them.
Yes.
And now, a year from now, you're almost able not to afford them.
Right.
So if you wait any longer, you're definitely not getting in this
interest
neighborhood.
rates will be 7.5%, 8% shortly.
Well, and it's not even that. I mean, at least in
going
Southern
up.
Maine, prices are still increasing.
Yeah.
So if you're $1 million buyer a year ago, that house is now $1.1 million, $1.2 million.
Yeah.
And if you're not $1.2 million buyer, you're not buying in that neighborhood anymore.
Right.
Right. And so if you don't get on the sideline, don't get off the sideline, you're going to miss the train.
Yes. And I have a client who I'm working with. He's qualified for $200,000. He can't buy anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you just also, you think about if you could have, and I say this all the time, it's like if I had known what I known, I would have bought half of Eastern Prom when I was 21 years old.
I used to live on Brackett Street.
Yeah. I mean, it was junk.
And I worked at Maine Medical Center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back then, I think my cousin bought the house for like $40,000, and they had to beg, borrow, and steal just to buy that.
Yeah.
They sold that same house for $300,000, and then they moved to Scarborough.
Yeah. Warren Buffett said, "Why wouldn't you buy something if you think it's going to increase in value?"
Well, I mean, you hear that story, like, I think everyone over the age of 40 says, "Oh man, I remember this house I bought was $200,000. Now it's selling for $600,000 or $800,000." So it's like it almost seems foolish not to get into real estate when you're young and get your hands on properties. But for a lot of younger guys and girls, it's hard because the financial hurdle. Houses aren't cheap; they're the most expensive thing that we buy. So I want
$15,000 doesn't sound that expensive.
But so I want to talk about private money lending, because if the thing is like my mentality has always been like, hey, if I find a good deal. People want to make more money. I can bring this to someone. So I've always kind of had this, I think a lot of people have this glass ceiling of if I need the money first, but in reality, if you can go find the deal, it's going to be a lot easier to go find the money. So I'd like to talk about, because we do have a younger audience as well here along with some agents. Ways that you've found private money deals, making these private money connections. Because the way we got in touch was I know you're a private money lender who's financing all these properties that you're buying. And you make one connection. Is now he was telling me, he's like, hey, if Francis tells me he's got a property, I just give him money. So it's about making those connections. And I think one thing that I've heard that was really that kind of clicked for me is that people think success is so far away, when in reality it's really like when you think of success as like I'm one connection away from success, I'm one deal away from success, and like just making that one phone call away from success, and it really shortens that mental hurdle that people think I don't even want to get into it because I don't have enough money. Like, so if you could talk about like finding deals at auction and then like making these private money connections, how actually easy it is, and it's actually a lot closer than it may seem to a lot of people.
Well, the second house I bought was a repo, and it was like $68,000, and I put it under contract without any funding. I didn't have any money, so I joined this money club on the internet, and I made 100 phone calls, and literally I got 99 no's, and then that 100th call, like. Literally is yes, I'll give you the money, and I'll give you the money to purchase the price for the purchase price, and I'll give you the money to rehab it.
And how much money did that guy make that gave you the money?
Probably $12,000.
Yeah. So it's like people are, there's people out there who want to make these private money deals and they want to make a return. You just have to bring them the deal. Yeah. If you go to someone, you're like, hey, I want money to buy a house. They're like, okay, they bring me something.
They want to lend money to somebody who's a safe bet. In other words, if you're 19 years old and you go to somebody and say, I want to borrow $300,000, I want to buy this house, and they'll say, well, a 19-year-old, no, I'm not going to lend you $300,000. But
if you go to them with if you find a house at auction and the Zestimate or whatever is like, which is the way I look at a Zestimate, it's like a FICO credit score. Like it's not like the actual what your real credit score, but it gives you a ballpark. Like if someone has a 670 FICO, they're not a 400.
Right.
They're so. If you can find a property that like is in a ballpark of $500,000 and you can get your hands on it for $300,000, $200,000 at auction, it's like it doesn't matter if you're 12, like that the deal makes sense.
Yeah, deal makes sense. I think Francis is on to something too. If you don't have the track record, if this is your first deal, but if you're 19 and you've done four deals previously and you've made money on each one of them, you're like, hey, here's my track record, and on top of that, here's a sweetheart of a deal.
So how do you get the first deal at 19 years old?
You need OPM, other people's money.
Yeah. So, but how do you convince that first person? Like I was.
You make 100 phone calls.
You made 100 phone calls, or you asked
because that person didn't ask you how old you were, did they, Francis?
Huh? No, but they can tell by my voice. But see, at this point, I've got 38 years in real estate. I was a building inspector. I'm a GC, general contractor, and last year I was number one for Keller Williams in New England for listings and sales.
Yeah.
And so this is crazy.
So I think a good way to kind of for young guys, kind of like, gosh, okay, it's over. I haven't done any. I know I can go out and find a good deal because I'm motivated, but I don't have the experience, so no one's going to give me money. Bring someone to the table. You know what I mean? Like I could be like, hey, by the way, Nick Dambry, he's had, he owns this many units. He's been in real estate for the past 25 years. He's this successful investor. He's on this deal with me, by the way. So that just sweetens the deal for the investor. So it's like, if you can go out and find the deal, there's people out there who have the money, who want to make money. And so you're saying you can get a lot of these connections from forums online.
Yep.
Just Googling private money lenders for real estate deals.
And you can join some of these gurus like Pace Morby. You can join his team, and they call you baby elephants. And they'll, without signing up and joining the team, they'll do a deal with you. And they get 50% of the profit. And I'm going like, that's too expensive for me. I don't want to work that hard and give away 50% of the profit.
Yeah, but for someone starting out, a first deal, it's just building that track record is way more valuable than the extra $10,000, $20,000.
And they'll do 100% of the expense, 100% of the repairs. And so if you make $50,000, they get 25, and you get 25 of the net. It's a good deal for them, and for the first time, if you do 4 of those deals, now you have a track record.
Right.
And so there's gurus out there that'll do that for you.
Yeah.
So just to kind of like maybe wrap up, you two, you're saying podcasts. What are your 3 favorite podcasts to watch? What are your 3 favorite books to read?
I watch Pace Morby, and I watch Chris Haskins. And
Now 7-figure real estate show.
huh?
Yeah.
What's that?
I said now that's the name of our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't think. There's a couple other people. I watch YouTube all the time, and I just watch a whole bunch of things on the economy and what's happening.
Sure.
And I've got several books, but I can't tell you the name of them.
Okay.
But they're all about foreclosures, flipping houses, and et cetera.
Okay.
And I sent you some documentation. Did you get it on your email?
I don't believe so.
Okay, check your email.
Yeah.
I'm on the Working on Wealth with Kathy Manchester, and I did a mastermind meeting on flipping houses for her and the group, and then I did like 6 pages of notes, and so I sent you those notes.
Okay.
It tells you where to find the repos, all the websites, where to find money and where to what to do.
Yeah.
When I look at a house, I like that Kenny Rogers. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, when to walk away, and when to run. I ran away from a house. I bought it, and I couldn't get into it. You're not supposed to go inside the houses, by the way, but people get in.
Yeah.
I got in. I didn't go into it, and then when I got into it, the foundation was racked. The house was crap, and I paid $60 for it, and I put $5,000 down on it last month, and I called the attorney. I said, "Keep the $5." I walked away from it. I ran away from it. It was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to wholesale it, find somebody to. It was so bad, nobody else wanted it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the mistake is not doing your legwork in buying a house.
Right.
If you don't go into the house, because you could get there and there could be 6 feet of water in the basement. I bought a house 30 years ago, had 6 feet of water in it. The realtor opened the door and the water was up to the threshold, and I said, "You first." And I bought the house though.
Yeah.
They wanted 60 and I gave them 30. And the bank, he took pictures and the bank took the offer. And it was a money pit, and I should have wholesaled it for 40 and made money, but I fixed it all up, made it beautiful, and literally broke even.
Yeah.
After 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a couple of those you learn the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it cool if I put those notes that you sent me into the description of the show for people to check out?
Yeah, it'd
all
be
the
nice.
resources.
They're all handwritten. It'd be nice if you could, somebody could type them, or at least there's an app you can get on your phone. It literally takes a picture of the.
It's Google.
Huh?
Yeah. Just Google. You can do it with the Google scan.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that, but because then it'll look better printed.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. We'll make sure to do that.
Great.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Send
I
them
think
to me when you do that, please.
Yeah, we'll make sure to send you the episode.
Yeah.
All right. I think that brings us to the end.
Thanks, Francis, so much.
Francis, thank you so much.
Thank you.